Hey Sue, how's it going? Yes. No, there's something about Aussies and bad living conditions in our houses. It's not a good mix. So, yes, I can see why you did that. Hopefully, your talk went good though. Yeah. What's the temp at the moment where I'm at? Last time I checked, it was 8 degrees. So, but I think it's probably gone down, to be honest. Let's see. Oh, Snap's still 8 degrees, but that's good. Glad that yours went well. Hey everyone. So I am juggling both my computer and my phone right now. So fingers crossed it's all working okay. If anyone has any questions to throw at me, that'd be awesome. Otherwise, so yes, for shorter snails, bonus the plants. Yes, yeah, I love aquatic snails for my aquariums as well. So would recommend snails. I'm a big advocate. They clean up like detritus, algae, like diatoms, off which things like that. Food as well. So, oh, hey Kelsey, how's it going? Yes, I love snails. Snails are an amazing addition. I think not only just to the pools, but even aquariums as well. I've also got to be very careful. So I'm doing this on my phone. So I've got to be careful. My big fat fingers can press buttons that shouldn't be pressed. So fingers crossed I don't accidentally press something bad. But hopefully everyone's doing okay. Yeah, minuscule. Okay. Depending on what the type of snail. So I know in Australia, we only get really about 5 different species of snails. So you got the Malaysian trumpet snails, and those are the ones that burrow. Then you get the ram's horns, the bladder snails, pond snails, um, Japanese trapdoor snails. That's the words I was looking for. So pond snails or bladder snails, and then Japanese trapdoor snails. Those two are pretty similar to each other, and then the final one's the mystery snail, which grow massive. Um, I love the Malaysian trumpet snails, so they're like a little cone-shaped snail, and they mostly burrow, so they're really good at stirring up sediment from your substrate. Um, would recommend those. Love them. And they're also live bearers as well, and they breed live young. There is other snail species that have made their way into Australia, but I forgot neurites as well. Aussie neurites. So Aussies have yes, I just saw that notification, Sue. We'll check it out. Aussie neurites as well. I know that we have a local species that are for sale here, but they are very expensive. But they're meant to be really good at cleaning up. Um, Good for your plants as well. If you've got a lot of diatoms in particular, as well as green spot algae, they're really good at cleaning up those, which helps promote plant growth because they're not competing for nutrients in the water. They're not just competing for nutrients. So would recommend snails. I think they're great at just helping to maintain the tank a little bit. You sure, Kelsey, it's not an apple snail? Because like they're closely related to the mystery snails. Like, they're the same genus, just different species, but they get massive. Like, I think like tennis ball, softball size. So they could be apple snails as well. Hey, Christine. How's it going? How's everyone going? Ooh, okay, I'm just gonna get comfy. There we go. Clementine. Oh no. Okay, I'm trying to think clementine size. This has been a while since I've had a clementine, so I'm trying to remember how big they are. I feel like that's approaching apple snail size. I don't know. It's been a while. I know there's other types of they're in the same genus as the mystery and apple snails, and I know that they're more readily available in the US because local species. So maybe that might be one of those. Yes, it is winter. It is. I was just talking to Mary before. It's 45 degrees Fahrenheit here at the moment and 12:35 a.m. So yes, I am a trooper. Make me. I'm just gonna, have my little sorrow story so I can cry if I want and make everyone feel sorry for me. Jealous? Oh, absolutely not. No, no way. Nah. I need heat. Give me. No, I am a summer. I get seasonal depression. I hate the winter. Cannot stand it. I hate the cold. I hate the wet. Combine them together, just yuck. I love the summer. Give me the beach day in, day out. Love it. I love the heat. Time to switch places. Tempting. I've always said I need to move up north. Exchange. Sue's not too bad. Sue lives further up north, so she gets it a little bit warmer than what I do. So I'm glad to know that it's kind of an even division between the summer lovers and winter lovers. I love the home exchange. Yeah, no, like negative. Yeah, no. You got me at negatives, and no, I wouldn't like it. I like tropical conditions. 100%. My plans also like tropical conditions too. To keep on topic, because otherwise I get distracted. Tell us about plans. So where do I begin? Okay, recommendations. Okay, so recommendations. So I know that there's a lot of plants that people can get um, for their tanks, and I feel like it really depends on how hands-on you want to be. Um, like taking over the tank, I guess that's a concern. I feel like especially with hermit not a concern. I've yet to see anyone say that plants have taken over their tank. I feel like most of the time it's plants are barely struggling to survive in their tank, myself included. Yet to find a plant that is indestructible to the crabs that's alive. I feel like so epipronium or pothos or devil's ivy, depending on what you want to call it. Salt water pool plants, yeah, they're a thing. I'll make a mental note to myself. I will get on that. Um, but yeah, devil's ivy or epipronium aureum, they are pretty resilient. I've had a pretty good success rate with keeping those with the crabs. They're pretty hardy, low light, tolerant, really tolerant if overwatered, underwatered, all around pretty hardy. They have what is called oxalates in their, what's the word I'm looking for? In their tissues. There we go. Which oxalates in mammals, reptiles, has been, it's observed in literature that it impacts calcium absorption, which can lead to things like kidney stones, but also lead to a decreased calcium in their bodies, which can cause you know, bone density decrease, fragile bones, things like that. With crabs, because they've got an exoskeleton, don't know if the same rules are going to apply. But I understand that there is concerns about that when it comes to oxalates as well, because it's uncharted territories. But to put in perspective, oxalates are found in a lot of commonly grown vegetables like spinach, spinach, silver beet, things like that. So a lot of those leafy greens have oxalates because oxalates is a deterrent for predators, aka animals. But I do wonder if there might be in a kind of effect with plants and crabs in terms of oxalates. Um, with a lot of plant metabolites or a lot of plant, um, what's the word I'm looking for? Plant anti-predator systems like oxalates and things like that. There might be an issue with crabs, but at the same time, these guys like I feel like eat anything. Like so, I don't know. Like, and I know in the wild they'll be having access to oxalates and things like that. Um, maybe it's in excess that's going to be an issue, but it's something that would be interesting to explore. But yeah, so I can't remember if cooking them actually degrades the oxalates or not, Sue. I feel like I remember looking it up and I can't recall right now, and I don't want to be definitive, um, just in case. Another plant that I like, that I find pretty good, let me just scroll, um, is bromeliads as well. So, in particular, the Neogranella, I'm probably butchering the scientific name, Neogranella bromeliads. So, they relatively small compared to other bromeliads. They're an epiphyte, so they grow um, attached to like rockwork, wood, things like that. So they grow out off the substrate because the crab's going to spend most of the time kind of on the substrate. I do feel if it's out of their way, they're less likely to consume it as well. And those guys are pretty tough and resilient. I think the hardest thing I find is with them, they require a lot of light. Um, what other plants do I've got a whole list. I had pretty good success at one stage keeping prayer plants or Maranta species. But then when I tried them again, yeah, like orchids. So bromeliads, consider them like orchids in terms of growing behavior. So yeah, exactly my thoughts regarding to that, Stacey, is just they've in like I think with anything, all nutrients are in moderation. Anything that is fed in excess can cause problems. So, for example, in humans, if you have too much iron, that causes a range of health issues. If you have too little iron, range of health issues. Same with copper, same with zinc, same with proteins, things like that, and different types of proteins as well can cause all these issues within our systems. And the same will extend to crabs. Um, so that's why I've I know that it's well established. I know that a lot of crab hobbyists have found them that their crabs don't eat the same thing all the time. So I feel like crabs are pretty smart in avoiding oxalates, and I found that they don't really seem to consume my epiprenums as much. Thoughts on pothos? Yes, so epiprenum pothos. Yes, love him. Spider plants, I've always seemed to kill them. Unless they kept outside, I've always seemed to kill them. Everyone, I know a couple of others. I think some German crabbers have had really good success with spider plants, actually. And I think that's where kind of my original master list started off with was from a lot of the German hobbyists. A lot of some reason the EU hobbyists seem to love to add plants to their tank. So a lot of the times what I've found is going onto the German forums and looking at what they've done in terms of plants. Because a lot of those groups have, and the members in those groups have tested them and kind of had their own little list. The hardest part is reading German. I don't read German, so that's always painful. But yeah, the German guys seem to really enjoy keeping plants in their tanks. Yes, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, and same with fish as well. Like I'm a big fish nerd, so they love natural enclosures. Um, Crabs shoot spider plants to death. Yeah, my spider plant just died to death. I don't think my crabs took them, but they might have. Since I don't need source any, sorry, Kelsey, I'm getting back to your question. Yes, they love high humidity. So bromeliads, I'm going to say a lot of them because I know that there is always an exception. I know there's some bromeliads that actually grow in drier conditions and appreciate dry conditions, but a vast majority of them that's found within the hobby, that's readily available. Sandy substrate won't bother them. Salt would, however, so keep in mind if they're located close to your saltwater pools and you do have a bit of overspray, that might be an issue. They love high humidity. They are very heat tolerant. Most of them that's commonly available with bromeliads. So they are pretty, if you look at what they need in the wild, bromeliads and the crabs seem to overlap really well. So that's why I think they're a good choice as well. Yes. Yeah, no, they'll probably do well on there too. I know there's some bromeliad species similar to orchids that do what is called a cloud forest species. So they're found in what is called cloud forest, which is high humidity but very low temperatures. So keep in mind when looking at different Neogenella species. Most of them are hybrids, so they're pretty resilient to most things. But just in case you do get a kind of a pure specimen, try to keep them separate. It's fine. Yeah. There's one plant I've been meaning to try. So when I went to the Broome, so this is where wild Aussie crabs are found, or can be found in Broome. There's a plant species that was introduced that is salt tolerant, found commonly in dunes and commonly used throughout the world as a way to revegetate dunes. Let's see if I've got it in my list somewhere. I've been wanting to try and get my hand on one, and I've yet to find one for sale. So until I find one for sale, I really want to try it because I feel like they would work really well. They're salt tolerant, sand tolerant. They thrive in low nutrients. Let me find. I swear I've written it down somewhere, and of course I'm not going to find it because that's how my life goes. Botanic Garden in Perth. Yeah, but the issues I know with so for the guys that's in America, WA is where Perth is located, so that's the state, and they have really strict import and or border security to Australia as well. So I can't remember if the same applies trying to ship plants out of there. I I've been always tempted if I go up wandering up north and see the plant. I swear it starts like Iona. I'm trying to read my list and also pay attention to the chat. I need like bi-directional eyes that kind of keep both. I swear I wrote it down somewhere. Of course, I'm not going to find it. Watch as I'm going to find it after the fact. But yeah, I saw those guys and I'm like, that would be an amazing tank, amazing plant to add to the tank. Oh yeah, to answer the early question before I do forget, because I'm going to forget, plants with saltwater pools. So saltwater is a major problem with a lot of plants. A lot of the times, plants in saltwater pools are just going to be macroalgae. So think of it like decorative algae. It's algae that you want to have in your pool. Those can be, you can find those online and they can be shipped to you. So that's going to be most of the plants that you're going to have for the saltwater pool. The only exception is the mangroves. So mangroves, a lot of mangrove species. I know in the US there's red, black, and white mangroves. I can't remember their scientific names. And I know that one species is found predominantly in freshwater. One is a bit more intertidal, and one's only found in marine. Question mark. It's been a while since I've last studied that. So keep in mind when looking at mangroves that you're buying a mangrove for marine that can handle marine conditions. Mangroves require a lot of light though. So if you're going to try mangroves in your pool, they're a great nutrient exporter, but they require a lot of light and they also excrete salt in their leaves. So you might have to spray down their leaves. Otherwise, it will cause salt burn in their leaves. So the way that they do this is to minimize salt intake for the marine species. They take up all water, use the water as plants would, and then they excrete the salt in their leaves, and that salt actually kind of crystallizes on the leaf surface. Because it's raining a lot in coastal areas, the salt kind of gets washed away when it rains. But however, in a non-natural setting, aka our tanks, that salt's not going to get washed away. So it kind of just builds up on the plant. So therefore, a lot of reef keepers, if they're making a mangrove tank or they use mangroves in their reef aquariums, they have to spray them down every couple of days. But they're really cool. I had a mangrove pod in my tank. It survived until I went away on holidays, and then I came back and it was half chewed. So I managed to keep it for a good couple of months, and it had a lot of roots and things like that. Yeah, crabs will eat mangroves. Yes, I was very upset. I love that mangrove, but yeah, they require a lot of light as well. So keep in mind, if you're trying mangroves, they require a lot of light. I know the reef keepers are like keeping them under metal halides. So these are high intensity lights, put out a lot of heat. So keep in mind with your trying mangroves. Other plants that will thrive in a marine environment. I'm trying to think. Besides macroalgae, nothing's coming to mind. I guess seagrasses, technically. I think I've seen a couple of years ago seagrasses being sold in the US for hobbyists to buy. I don't know if that's common, but that might be an option. But once again, seagrasses are like mangroves. They require a lot of light. So if you're trying seagrasses, I'll be interested to see how it fares up. A lot of them are pretty resilient. But I know they will require a lot of light. I feel like the crabs would also love destroying them, but that would be a really good nutrient source as well. Planted aquarium lighting should be enough. For mangroves, Sue, if you're talking about planted aquarium lighting for mangroves, depends. If you're buying the kind of a cheaper unit, probably not. You're wanting to probably get something that's got a bit of oomph. For example, one particular brand is the Kessel units, or I'm forgetting the H H something, HD Prime, I think. AI Prime Light. Those units are expensive, but they pack a lot of heat, a lot of light as well, and the hydras as well. Can it be set to ramp up and down? And even I know the Kessel can. The new Kessel units can. The old Kessel units, I don't think so, unless you get the Wi-Fi converter, which is another couple of hundred. I think the AI Prime and the Hydras can, but yeah, I think they can. Grow lights that don't cost an arm and a leg. Okay, those lights, depending on what you're looking for, I don't know. It depends on location as well. I've had pretty good success with my aquarium at the moment, just using a regular old eBay LED floodlight. They're pretty good in terms of power to output. That's cheap. But I know that there is mixed success with that. If you're just looking for something that will just kind of do a bit of everything, maybe it won't have some fancy features like it ramps up and down so it gets dimmer and brighter throughout the day. A simple, trying to think of what's also available in the US that I've seen here. Fluval systems. What's really popular that I've seen a lot of aquarium keepers keep besides Fluval? I'm trying to think of like the LED aquarium lighting that can be used. Um, of course, nothing's coming up except like the Aussie stuff. Hey, Stacey. I know there's a really popular one that's a lot of American aquarists use that doesn't cost an arm and a leg because I know there are other ones that cost an arm and a leg. Might be Higer. Let's see. I think it might be those. I don't know. I can't recall if I've seen them for sale in Australia. Because lately I've been just going to the El Cheapo LED lights and having fun with those. Trying to remember because I know that there's a lot of just in Australia. I don't know about the US. We get a lot of lights from Asia for sale here, or at least for what I've seen. So I don't know if the same applies. I know that the US has a bit more name brand equipment, but the prices differ a lot as well. I know that some things that are cheap in the US, if I was to buy it here, is expensive, and the flip side as well. But I feel like as long as it can support aquariums, you should be okay for majority of the plants. If you are trying to put plants in with your crab habitat. Hmm. Yes, I think the fluval's not too bad in Australia, but everything in Australia is expensive. You add a zero basically to the end of it. Whatever it costs in America, if you add a zero, you pretty much got the Australian price equivalent. Um, so yeah, I know that a lot of people enjoy fluval. I know, I think up aqua, but I think that's mostly found in a lot of the Asian market. I know that a lot of fish keepers have had good, um, have enjoyed those. Trying to think of any other lights as well. But literally, if you can grow aquarium plants in it, it'll be fine. If you just got a deep aquarium or deep crab habitat, keep in mind light output intensity diminishes the deeper it goes. So if you've got a really tall tank for whatever reason, or you've got a topper and you're trying to grow plants at the bottom, it might not fare very well. They might grow a bit leggy. They might, what we call leggy is like it just grows long and very skinny, doesn't look very chunky and healthy. So you might need something that has a bit more oomph. But generally, if you want the oomph, you're going to have to pay the dollars. Unfortunately, that's why I've enjoyed the LED floodlights from eBay because they're cheap and they're pretty easy. Yeah, try if you consider looking into LED floodlights. You won't see a whole lot in the crabbing circles. I haven't seen a lot of people try floodlights on their crab tanks, but with my aquarium, I've got a 2 foot um, tall aquarium, and I've chucked a floodlight on top, and I've really noticed a difference. I think it's only a 30-watt floodlight, LED, customizable. Can set it up on my app on my phone, and it works a treat. And because I've done a floodlight, I've decreased the optic angles, which promotes high intensity light traveling further. Um, I think that would be a good fit if you're wanting cheap. But I'll be interested to see how it fares up if you do decide to look into a floodlight and see if it does suit your conditions. Look into more, I guess, the aquarium side of things. If you're looking into floodlights to see if it's suitable for what you're looking for, because it's well established in aquariums as a cheapo alternative, and particularly if you've got a deep aquarium, and see if it suits kind of your, I guess, expectations in a light. But yeah, if you've enjoyed a floodlight with your bearded, I don't see why you might not want to try with your crabs, particularly in the taller part. Even if it's on maybe just during noon or something, you can play around with that and see how they fare with that. Be interesting to see. Trying to see if there's any more questions that I might have missed. Because knowing me, I've missed a question as I've rambled. I don't think there is, but I might be wrong. But yeah. Hmm. Kelsey, remind me again, do you have UVB in your tank? Because I found that my crabs are really active during the day when I added UV. Um, if you have, ignore me. I know that every crab's a bit unique, but I've noticed a really difference in their behavior with the implementation of UV compared to just normal lighting. Yeah, I guess you having a bit beardy, you're probably familiar with the UV replacing of the bulbs. But I do think that the UV is just really important for just their visual stimuli because I can bet literally my left toe, all of them, that the crabs are going to see in the ultraviolet spectrum. So just allowing them to see in their spectrum is just allowing them to feel comfortable in their environment. Mm, yes, tanning can relate. I would love to be getting tanned right now instead of being cold. I empathize with your crabs too. I wish to be a crab underneath a UVB bulb at 80 degrees. That would be heaven right now. That can even be summer. Yeah, I'll midwinter, summer, autumn, spring, whatever it might be. Yeah, I love the heat. Uh, heat and humidity, honestly, they are like the perfect couple. I know that some people go, no, I can't handle humid, warm, but I love it. Okay, so with Xander, if you're talking about UV being needed, the general consensus is it's not needed. However, it's a great addition to add to your tank, so don't feel like you have to do so. Just a lot of crabbers that have done so have noticed a change in their behavior, a bit more active during the day compared to only being active at night. Also promotes coloration, food intake, things like that. So there has been benefits, but there's been no requirement as of yet that you have to have a UV lamp. Keep in mind with UV lamps, they also require replacement every 6 to 9 months. So even if the light is appearing to be working, the UVB output decreases dramatically. So it can also be very expensive. I know UVB LEDs are being produced, but I don't think they're being commercially available for sale as of yet. I've been very curious to and keeping an eye on those. I know they're very expensive though, but I would love if they became commercialized because I imagine they would have a prolonged UVB output compared to the T5, T7 halogen fluorescent tube lamp thing. But they are very expensive. I know that. Yes. Oh, actually, Sue, how is your plants going in your pool? I'm actually curious to hear. So I know with the dragon flame that they're a bit more terrestrial. They can handle roots being in water. They're a bit more. I think they actually found bog plants are on the margins of the water. But it'd be interesting to see how it fares in your pool because they can grow out of the pool with ease and probably appreciate the humidity and the heat as well. Anubias is a great freshwater plant. They're basically, I think, collectively known or colloquially known as the living plastic plant. They are pretty much indestructible. No, that's perfect. Yeah. It's good that you want to make sure that they're nice and happy and healthy, Xander. So if you can look into it, it can be an expensive adventure. UVB setups also, you can't have glass or screens in between it because glass will filter out the UVB or most of it. Plastic will do the same. And if you have a screen that's really dense, it blocks out UVB rays as well. So the setup for those can be a bit finicky. I know a lot of the Facebook groups have spoken about them previously. So you probably be able to search in the group and find some tips and tricks on how to do UV. No, that's perfect. All good. Feel free to duck out. It's all good, Kelsey. Sand, yeah. Be interesting to see how the sand goes too, because it doesn't have a lot of nutrients in that. I think if I recall correctly from what I saw with UVB and glass, I think it was something about 90 to 98% of the rays get filtered out. So a bit would filter through. But I might be wrong on those numbers, so don't quote me. But imagine they would have filtered through, particularly if they could climb up and get closer to the unit. Mm. Yeah, that would help too, with the light being close to the glass. Because I know that UVB is pretty weak compared to UVC, which is the harmful rays that causes cancer um, or DNA damage in us. So I don't know. I can't remember if crabs have ever been recorded to have cancer or cancerous tumors, but I know in mammals, UVC causes tumors development. Um, yeah, hence the reason why we tan to minimize those effects as well. But I can't remember if plants actually utilize UVB or not. I don't think they do, but don't quote me. I think it's used UV lighting is for coloration. So plants often have, oh, I can't remember the compound. Basically, if you've ever noticed that the new growth is a bit more reddish in appearance with plants, there's a particular compound that is produced in that new growth and it basically stops UV radiation from affecting the new establishing leaves or foliage of the plant. So that's why new growth often appear to be a different color compared to the mature growth in a plant. But I don't think they utilize it for photosynthesis, as far as I'm aware. It's only really blue and red spectrums of light in the visible spectrum that plants utilize. But I might be wrong. There might be another process that plants have that utilize UV for protein synthesis or degradation or something like that. But I might be wrong. It's been a while since I did plant biology. So I'm very much not familiar with the plants. There we go, anthocyanins. I thought it was that. And then I'm like, nah, it must be something else. I'm like, I'm getting those confused with something else. Yep, that red pigment. Yep. Thank you. Thank you, Sue. Yes, that's perfect. Because I was just like, nah. I was like, I'm thinking of something else. Oh, I was correct. Wow. Yes. Even AI. I've really come to enjoy AI with using AI. And even when I'm teaching, I tell my students, feel free to use AI as a tool to help you understand content, not as a way to cheat, but to help you understand or just general question and answer base. Um, it's a great tool. I love the internet. It's great. Pandarus. Let me just look it up just to see what Pandarus is. Those look very big, Sue. They look massive. I feel like I correct me if I'm wrong. Don't they appreciate more dry conditions? I thought they preferred drier conditions. Um, but maybe I'm wrong. I know that they're tropical. Yeah, but they don't. I don't know if they appreciate like the conditions, like the moist conditions of our habitats. Like, because like for example, like even though they're found on the beaches where you're at, it's drier compared to what it would be in your habitat, which that moisture just due to it being an enclosed environment. I feel like I don't know. I don't think I've seen anyone try to keep them, but are they closely related to pineapples? Because I know that a couple of crabbers have tried pineapples, which is a close relative of bromeliads. Basically, it's a bromeliad. So I feel like if they are very similar to bromeliads in terms of growth, they might do okay. I don't know. I can't recall anyone actually keeping a pandarus, but I might be wrong. Be interesting to see if you do happen to try more like custard apple. Hmm. I don't know. I'm just seeing pictures of Google and just seeing this massive tree, and I'm like, okay, Sue, are you going to build a room for your next crab tank? And I'm like, okay, I can't wait to see that one set up. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see. I guess because they grow on the beach on the dune, they're probably they're probably really tolerant of nutrient devoid conditions. So maybe they might fare well, and they'll probably also be salt tolerant. I imagine they're also salt tolerant. There might be a worthy shot. I feel like if they did do well, they'd just grow too big that you'd have to either lop it down or just get a new one and constantly change them out. But I feel like the crabs would enjoy tearing off the fronds of the plant. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see. I can't recall anyone actually trialing them, but I feel like they do okay. If they're similar to the ponytail palms, then I feel like because they're similar to the ponytail palms, it might be okay. Because I know a lot of crabbers that try ponytail palms and they prefer dry conditions. So maybe. Yeah. But those little seedlings grow big. If you did try it, I'd be curious to hear what your thoughts about them. If you do try them, how they fare up in your tank. Yeah, that's true. I think the only plant that they won't eat is a plant that they can't get their claws on. But even then, I feel like half the time they don't eat them. They're just sadistic and they enjoy just tearing things apart. It brings them joy. Um, which is funny because other crab species aren't the same. Other crab species don't really share that same sentiment, I feel. But yeah, I don't know. I'm looking at them. I just don't know enough to comment. I feel like they would do well if they're pretty tolerant, just the size being an issue for long term. But I guess if you're happy with the seedlings, it might be okay. Yeah. So a lot of Brahms love the humidity and the heat. I guess Josh's frogs I know also they grow in organic conditions. So a lot of the time in if you're buying from retail, um, it's not designed to be kept with um or they don't grow them for sale to keep with animals. So they are often grown with pesticides, things like that, fertilizers. Um, so that's the only thing is just transitioning them, growing them in a media that doesn't contain pesticides and fertilizers. Pesticides, I'm making up a new one. Before and doing like a couple of weeks or a month in out of the tank and then growing them in the tank. If you did buy plants from a source that isn't known to be organically grown, just in the off chance, that might be an issue. Yes. Oh yeah, I do have Aussies. I've also kept freshwater crabs that are only found in Australia and I think New Zealand as well. But unfortunately, I didn't have very good success with breeding those. Love to try again though. They were good fun. They very similar to I think they're Thai micro crabs that you guys have available in the US. But they prefer cooler water. I think that's what stuffed me up. Is I kept them in a bit more tropical conditions. Um, Freshwater, so neither. They found pretty much freshwater, live, breed, eat, sleep, die freshwater. I know there's another species that live in freshwater, but their developmental stage occurs in brackish water before migrating back up to freshwater as well. Yes, aquatic, pretty much 100% aquatic. Mhm. Yes, pests as well. So pests uh, kind of go hand in hand with plants. Gnats is a common one. Mites is another one. So yeah, repotting them is great. Washing them as well. I know if in aquariums, often they do a dip in hydrogen peroxide or bleach. I haven't really resorted to that. Yeah, true. Ants, spiders as well. I've had spiders in my tank. It's Australia, so spiders are inedible. I feel like spiders are going to happen. I think the crabs ate the spider though, so it was a great food source for them. But yeah, also it's good to check for before quarantining plants. Just observe for pests. So pull apart the leaves, look into those little nooks and crannies where the leaves attach to the main plant or the stem, because that's where a lot of those pests like to hide. And then treat accordingly as well. Do I have a pincher? I think you're referring to purple pinchers. No, so not as for sale in Australia. Do I have a pincher unless I go like this? But otherwise, no. No pinchers here, unfortunately. Oh, did they end up eating all of them, Sue? All the peppermint shrooms? I I thought there was one that managed to survive. Oh, that's sad. Because they're pretty expensive, aren't they? They're peppermint shrooms. But yeah, that's a bummer. Sorry to hear about that. That's a very expensive snack. Yeah, because I remember you telling me about the one peppermint that got munched on, but I didn't realize that both of them went out of commission. So, what kind of hermit crab? Oh, so what kind of hermit crabs are available in Australia? I'll answer that just in case. The crabs that are available in Australia is Cinnabitter variabilis, or the Aussie hermit crab. So they're found in the northern parts of Australia. And they're pretty much only found / for sale in Australia. I know there has been export to the US of those crabs in the late 2000s. So I think 2009, 2010, 2012, I think was the last export, 2013. I remember it being a big deal for a lot of the American crabbers there. But I think a lot of them died in transit. It honestly wouldn't surprise me, though, if they are in Indonesia, especially Papua New Guinea, because global warming has caused massive changes to the ocean currents and things like that. So it wouldn't surprise me if they have made it to Indonesia. I know that Christmas Island, so Christmas Island is part of the Australian territory, and they have Indonesians. They have the Indonesian hermit crabs, so the brevies, the kavipes. I think they got lilas and strawberries there. Oh no, ruggies, the brevies, strawberries, and then there's another one. Can't remember. And those aren't found on mainland Australia, but they are found on Christmas Island. Strawberries are found off the coast of mainland Australia. So, and they have been available for sale in Australia with a very good price tag. Yes, exactly. See, thank you. What else is there? Supposedly, there's meant to be what's the hairy one? Spinosis. That are found in mainland Australia, particularly in the Northern Territory and I think Queensland, but I don't think they go as far west as Western Australia. But I've never seen any evidence of that besides loose reports. Sorry, to answer your question, Colleen, what plant should I put in my freshwater and saltwater tanks for my peppermint? Any plants? Okay, so the first one, what plants should I put in my freshwater? Sue's got a couple of suggestions up above of some things that she's done recently or she's added. One I would recommend is Anubias. They are basically like the living plastic plant, very hardy, virtually indestructible. They're an epiphyte, so they don't like to be buried. They're rhizome, so the part where the leaves come out of and the roots come out of, there's like a little green line. So imagine got like, my arm, this is like green line, leaves coming out here, and then roots coming out here. This here, don't bury it. They're pretty hardy. Great plant for your freshwater pool. Another good plant, I think, for your freshwater pool that would do pretty well. Laguigia. I'm going to butcher that one. Rotala as well. Those plants are pretty hardy, especially if they're commonly available. There is some cultivars that are a bit more expensive, but they also aren't as hardy. So if they're a cheaper one, they're probably going to be hardy. Floating plants is a great one. Salvinia, frogbeard, water lettuce, duckweed. What's another? Azilla as well. They're really good at nutrient export in your freshwater. For saltwater, the only really plants that you can have is going to be macroalgae. You can buy them online. If you look up like macroalgae for marine aquarium or reef, you'll see a lot of macroalgae. A lot of them look really cool and decorative as well. Otherwise, the only actual plant that you're going to have is mangroves, but they are a bit finicky to look after. They need a lot of light and really good conditions to keep them happy. And then any plants in pots in their habitat. So I assume you're talking about plants growing terrestrially. I think my go-to plant is pothos or Epipremnum aureum. They are pretty indestructible. I love my epipremnums. They also come in a few different color varieties as well. I've had good success with prayer plants in the past, but not good success at the moment. So recommend epipremnum. They're pretty they're pretty resilient. Bromeliads, if you're growing them on the background, they are great plant as well. They're pretty hardy as well, bromeliads, so particularly the Nidronella species. Do water changes cause a challenge for the plants to survive? Um, Honestly, no, Mia. I feel like if anything, water changes actually help the plants. So plants, take up nutrients from water column, for example. But what happens is the nutrients that they need are going to be depleted quicker or are more likely to be depleted. So water changes is actually adding those nutrients back in and kind of resetting um, nutrient availabilities. So if anything, a water change is probably a good thing for plants rather than a deterrent. Hey Metacrab. Hey Dan. Any place to put my plant info? I do have um a plant guide that I've been meaning to update for a number of years that I've been slowly working on in the background. Just got to find the time to update it. I've got a whole list there. I believe on um, in the main Facebook group. I think there might be a link to it. And if not, I think it might be linked to it in the. Oh no, I'm blanking on the. I'm blanking on the blanking on the website name at the moment. Oh no, it's going to come to me. Going to come to me. I'm just blanking. It's late night here. Um, Give me like 5 seconds. Yeah, Hemocrab Association. So that's where my list is on. But I believe there's a link on the Land Hemocrab Owners Society page, but I can't remember where exactly. And I recall seeing the link, but I can't remember if it's on the page or if it's on like one of the forum links, like Chewing the Cholla. How late? It's currently 1:27. Yeah, thanks to so late here. But yeah, I've got a list on Hemocrab Association, but I know that a link has been available on the Facebook group as well. It might be buried from my CrabCon talk that I did in I think it was 2020, which I think is available on YouTube as well. In the Thank you, Stacey. Thank you, much appreciated. I knew that there's. Is there something on the Hermit House forum? I don't know, Sue. I might be wrong. I've got no idea. I've been pretty transparent with most things. I just kind of chucked it on the Hermit Crab Association because I've been talking about it with the team there for years, and I finally got it done. I think like 2 years later, and now I've been updating it for the last 2 years. So I don't know when the new update's going to come out. I've been meaning to update it. I reread it all the time, and I'm like, oh my god, what am I writing? My writing has hopefully improved dramatically, but I've been meaning to update it. I don't know if it is on the Hermit House forum though, Sue. If it is, don't mind as long as they acknowledge where it's from. I think that's the important part. Just full transparency as well. So if I do update it, at least there's an updated version that people have available. I think that's the most important thing as well. I think that's important. No matter what happens, um, just referencing where you get things from. I think that's the one issue I have with my guide is a lot of those references have become non-existent because that was years of just slowly combining it all up. So that was years of just collating data. So I don't have a lot of references, unfortunately. But so I'll definitely keep you in mind. Um, it's just more writing it. Honestly, just finding the time at the moment is the hardest thing ever. Um, yeah, I'm just trying to get me in front of a computer right now to do anything is a challenge. I finished. I did a thesis recently. Finished my thesis recently, and ever since I finished that, last thing I want to do is sit in front of a computer and click clack away at the keyboard. But yeah, I might be wrong on that. I'm trying to think. Was there any other question that I might have missed? Bamboo is safe. So lucky bamboos. That was okay. Talking about lucky bamboo, I believe one crabber has had lucky bamboo with their crabs for a number of um, months or years. I don't want to call out names just in case I get the name wrong. And they've had no incident or illness with lucky bamboo. I think, from what I recall, lucky bamboo has a lot of oxalates um, in their main stem. So that's the reason why there's a bit of hesitancy surrounding them. But I know that a couple of crabbers have had lucky bamboo. Some of them have just chucked it in the freshwater pool, new crabbers, and they're like, oh, just chuck a plant in there, and they've kept it in there for a number of months. So I feel like I'm the school of it doesn't seem to be a problem, but I understand that other people might not share the same sentiments as I do. So I guess be mindful of that and use that in your own discretion. As a crabber with a concrete background, pretty good. There's only some sections of concrete that's kind of chipped off, unfortunately. And other than completely dismantling the whole entire tank to add more concrete on, I've kind of just ignored those spots. The crabs don't seem to be doing much damage with the expanding foam, though. If they did do a bit of damage with the expanding foam, I think I would do a clean out, because I don't know how I feel with expanding foam being in their digestive tract. I don't think it'd be an issue though, but it's just in the off chance that something does happen. But yeah, I did make holders for the plants. But yeah, no, their crabs enjoy tearing up the plants. So anything planting, anything green, the crabs will dig their claws at it. Any tips and tricks to keeping plants alive? Any tips and tricks? Thoughts and prayers, wishful thinking. Honestly, I think the most I've seen, sorry, the most I've seen success with plants is in a really large tank. Unless you have a large tank, I feel like a small tanks, for some reason, the crabs more likely to trample on it. I've seen like these amazing, like, 2 meter long. So we're talking 6 foot long, 6 foot tall, 3 foot wide crab tanks that some German crabbers have set up, and the plants seem to thrive in those. But I think it's just because it's such a big space that plants are less likely to get trampled on. Any tips and tricks just in general to keep plants alive? Just good light. Be mindful with watering. A little goes a long way. It's very easy to overwater. But yeah, I feel like generally, I think the best way to keep plants alive with crabs is just to have a big enclosure. But even then, I know that the guys that have big enclosures, this plants still get trampled on. So I think it's just a fact of life. If you're keeping crabs with or hermit crabs with plants, don't be attached to the plants. I think otherwise, other than sectioning off your plants, but I feel like that defeats the purpose of having plants with crabs. So yeah, just thoughts and prayers. Yeah, so I thought I was correct on the oxalates with the lucky bamboo. Um, but yeah, a lot of plants have oxalates. So I'm the school of thought doesn't doesn't really make much of a difference. Obviously, if they're going to ingest a lot, yes, that will be detrimental. But um, anything can be a problem. But oxalates are very common. Like I can't remember the exact statistic of the amount of plants that have oxalates in their tissue. Um, but yeah, scrolling back up, I know I missed a couple of questions, so I've got to scroll back up. Do they eat plants? Yes, they do eat plants. How old are my crabs? Ooh, oh god. So my group. So I started crabbing in 2012, and then I had a power outage when I was interstate. When I was, I think it was about 2014 or 15. I might be wrong on the dates. I know I've mentioned it on multiple forums. So I lost my entire clan because the power went out for I think a couple of days. It was winter at that time too, and my whole entire colony died. Pretty much all my fish died except for I think three fish. I think ferocles, one coolie loach, one angelfish, and then I think it was a bristlenose, and then all my other bristlenoses, coolie loaches. I had a whole colony of them. Angelfish, tetras, they all died. So I lost like probably about 98% of my pets when I came back from holidays. And then I didn't keep crabs for I think about 6 months, probably about 6 months to a year. And then I ended up adopting some, I think 2015. And then that's been my current group from then on. Last head count I've done is I've had 4 crabs that I've been going, yep, that's definitely 4. But it's hard to tell sometimes unless I actually dig them up. But I've seen 4 crabs at once, so I can comfortably say 4. But yeah. Let's see if I missed any out. Yeah. The ponytails don't like moisture. So airflow might be the issue, but I feel like it's more humidity as well. I think it's just a double whammy. But I know that there was one crabber that had good success with ponytail palm. That they I think had it for almost a year before it ended up carking it or dying. But yeah, they normally appreciate more dry conditions. I think they appreciate being watered and then allowing to dry out before watered again, while the crabbitat doesn't really allow for that system. So I think it did end up getting rot or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, so that's the reason why. Yeah, so it was upsetting. At the time, I remember being devastated. That's why I didn't have crabs for close to a year. I think it's about 6 months to a year. Because I felt devastated. And even my fish tank, I only repopulated my aquarium because I felt bad for my coolie loaches. I don't think I repopulated my aquarium properly for a good couple of months as well, until I felt ready. Because I remember that power outage also fried my heater in my aquarium as well. So I don't think that helped as well. Yeah, I think a couple of my plants, even in my aquarium, ended up dying as well. But it wasn't as bad as the animals. The animals aren't as resistant to those temperature swings. Tropical animals don't like cold conditions. Crazy. But yeah, I think my current group I've had at least for 7, 8 years now, but I might be wrong on that one. So I'm really bad with dates. I know dates and me don't mix. I definitely had them before I started uni though. So yeah, maybe it's closer to 10 now. Ooh, wait, 2015. Yeah. Oh yeah. Ooh, okay, I was way off. Yeah, I don't know what year it is anymore. Yeah, it's probably closer, very much approaching 10 years, 9, 10 years. Was there any other questions just before I miss any? Because I have a habit of missing things. I get distracted. I don't think so. I might be wrong. But yeah. Go to bed. Yes. Very much looking forward to that. Yeah, no, I had a early night last night, so that way I could keep on going. And I had coffee as well, so I'm doing all right. But yeah, I'd rather just make sure I get all the questions. And that's also a statement. But yes, I'd rather make sure. I know that there's probably a lot of unanswered questions as well. My 2020 CrabCon talk that's available on YouTube might answer some questions if I've missed them as well. Yes, I'm very cold. So in Australia, houses aren't designed for heat and they also aren't designed for cold weather conditions. It's currently 45 degrees Fahrenheit at the moment where I'm from, and you feel the cold. Thank you for doing the YouTube links. I'm on my phone, so makes it a bit more difficult to copy and paste stuff. But thank you for that, Stacey. Yes, and it's also winter here at the moment. So yes, it's very cold at the moment. Hence the hoodie to keep me nice and warm. It's basically a blanket if it's a hoodie. Yeah, Sue's definitely had it worse than me. I don't know how you've been awake for nearly 24 hours. You're nuts. You're making us Australians look nuts too. Any aquatic plants or regular plants that you would add to the safe list now? Haven't been there before. Let me see. Let me think. I'm reading a list. I guess I could be a bit more. I feel like aquatic plants, maybe. That's something I really wanted to flesh out, either as a plant list or in a separate document that that talks a bit more about aquatic plants as well, because the way that they operate is a bit different from terrestrial plants. And I guess with aquatic plants, you're also going to be mindful of the water conditions as well. And a lot of the aquatic plants have particular growing styles as well that can be easily missed unless you do further research on it. And I want to make sure I give people the basis to give them the most success, but then also allow them to research as well. So give them, I guess, a little spark notes, a little summary before getting aquatic plants. But I think just expanding on the aquatic plants, regular plants, I feel like I would include a bit more aroids. So collectively, like philodendron, monstera, epiprone and things like that. I think I would add them to the list. I love arrows as well, and I've often chucked spare cuttings of my plants that I have, all my arrow cuttings. I've normally chucked spare cuttings of that into my tank and seen how they grow. So I'd probably add those, unless I might have added them. I may have. I don't think I did. I might be wrong on that one. If I did, actually no, I've added most of them, but I've added them just as a genre. Um, Maybe I could expand and include species, but I know there's hundreds and hundreds of different aroid species, orchid species, Negronella species. So I've never tried Anacris because I hate the way that they look, and Hornwort, I hate the way that those guys look. So I've never bought them. I'm a bit of a snob because a lot of the plants I've thrown in my crab tank have been off cuttings from my freshwater tanks. But I know that a couple of crabbers have tried those. I don't know if I've included those. Maybe I might have. But yeah, Java moss I also hate. I hate the way the Java moss grows. I love the bit more of the specialty mosses. Christmas moss, weeping moss, flame moss. What's another common moss type? Christmas, weeping, flame. You get mini Xmas, mini weeping, or Physidens as well. I love the way that they grow. They don't grow gangly like Java moss does. They grow a bit more compact and a bit more ornate. And they're pretty similar in terms of care levels to Java moss, except they're a bit more slow growing. Yeah, no, I hate Java moss, and I pretty much, I remember having Java moss when I first got into planted aquariums, and then now if I see a frond of Java moss, I go into full blown lockdown because I hate it. Just grows like gangly, it just looks. Ugh. So no, I like the little pretty mosses. But yeah, no, Java moss is pretty indestructible though. So orchid that sits in the freshwater pool. Unless I'm misreading that. If there's an orchid that sits in freshwater pools, that's pretty cool. I didn't realize it was an aquatic orchid species. Wouldn't surprise me, but that's pretty cool. Unless I'm misreading that. Orchids, I cannot grow. The longest I've kept an orchid alive was for about 3 months out of the tank. Orchids and me just don't mesh well. I don't know what I do wrong with them. I grow them, give them good airflow with the roots, all that stuff. Grown them mounted. I've grown them in bark. I've grown them in moss. I've grown them in perlite. I've grown them in leca as well. They just die on me. Me and orchids just don't vibe. Yeah, no, I've tried moss. I've ended up killing them. Just the Phalaenopsis orchids just cannot grow. There's something about orchids. I love them. They look amazing, and I appreciate them from afar, but just they do not grow for me at all. Don't know what it is about them. And even like the more colder appreciating orchids that you can grow outside, I've killed those too. And then the ones that I don't look after, they'll do fine. So yeah, orchids and me do not mix. People have thrown multiple suggestions at me. I've got a friend that loves orchids, and she is always like, no, you're doing it wrong. You got to do it like this, or no, Jared, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, I've tried that. Please just tell me. I've grown it like how you told me, and it died. Yeah, or aroids love anything indoor plant, do fine with. Broms, fine. Orchids, I look at them, they die. But yeah, that's pretty cool that you've 5 years now. So do what you keep on doing. If you can do it, kudos. I wish I had the same success. Trying to think of any other plant I would add to the list. I know that there's probably plants that I would, but I'm trying to think of any that I would add to a list that I haven't already. I know that there's a couple of terrestrial plants that a lot of the paludarium people really like enjoy, like macrovias and things like that. But I feel like macrovias, even if you did try to grow them, they're slow growing, so they wouldn't do very well. The crabs would destroy them. But they are very pretty to look at. But I've never seen anyone try macrovia in their crab tank. But they're very similar to like the creeping fig, or but slow growing and look way nicer. I wonder if there's another plant. I know there's other plant species that I'm like, oh yeah, let's see them doing well. But a lot of the time the list has been plants that I've seen people try, whether they've actually said that they've tried it for a duration, but whether they've tried, I've added it to a list. If they haven't been tried and it's just my general inkling of what I think would work, I haven't added it to a list because I don't want to also mislead anyone as well. Chameleon plants. Let me just do a quick Google of, because I might be thinking of something else. Chameleon plant. Oh, perennial. I feel like they wouldn't like the heat / humidity. I know a lot of perennial plants don't enjoy that, but I might be wrong. Maybe they are. I've never really come across them. Oh, native to Southeast Asia. Never mind. Ignore me. Grows in moist, shady locations. Wait, if they are similar to another type of lizard tail species that is commonly found in Australia, maybe they actually would do okay. Honestly, no. I feel like aquaponics, generally with diseases, if it's very unlikely for cross species transmission to occur, or cross genera or cross family. So, for example, if there is a disease that commonly a disease that impacts fish, it's very unlikely for it to also infect shellfish and by extension crabs. Diseases that are found within crabs are very unlikely to travel to fish as well. The biology is very distinct. Viruses, for example, are 9 times out of 10 highly specific in how they infect and what they infect as well. So it's unlikely that it could happen. I guess there's always that small chance. So bacteria, for example, could be introduced, but bacteria is something that, just from my experience of working with bacteria, so I'm a microbiologist, a microbial geneticist. Bacteria is one of those things that is just found in the environment generally. So yeah, it's like how long's a piece of string. Generally, I wouldn't worry too much. I think the only thing you're probably worried about introducing with plants if you move them over is just algae. Yeah, with the hydrogen peroxide dip, that is pretty good in removing algae. Be mindful that if you are for like pests and whatnot, aquatic pests are also pretty rare unless you're sourcing them from outside. Hydrogen peroxide isn't really good if they got an exoskeleton and things like that. Um, so keep that in mind. And even then, hydrogen peroxide is relatively dilute, and that the ratio also depends on the concentration of hydrogen peroxide. So you can get hydrogen peroxide at 3% and 6%. So just be mindful of that ratio as well. 6% needs to be further diluted. I've honestly just dipped plants in 100% hydrogen peroxide, or 100%, aka the 3% solution with no further dilutions, and just dip that just to remove algae. But yeah, I don't know. I very rare to see aquatic. Do I have a channel page? So I don't really have a channel. Um, I have been. I do have a video on the CrabCon about the plant talk. It's in the 2020 CrabCon playlist, which I know Stacey linked it up further up, so you may be able to scroll. I am pretty much on a lot of the Facebook groups and many of the crab forums that are off Facebook as well. I float around on there. I'm often behind the scenes. I might not be active, but I will be trolling. I don't have a web page or a YouTube channel. I haven't really considered it. But yeah, thank you, Stacey, for linking it again. Yeah, like I know that there would be parasites on aquatic plants, but I've never really had that issue keeping aquatic plant species. I've had aquatic plants probably from about 2012, 2014. I think that's when I seriously got into them was 2014. So I considered 2014 kind of when I started keeping plants properly. And I've yet to see anything more than just a snail. Um, I know that nematodes could be an issue, but nematodes, there's so many different species of nematodes, so you've got to be mindful that even if they might be parasitic, a lot of nematode species that are parasitic are very specific to their host as well. So yeah, but hey, if you feel comfortable with a dip or things like that, do it. Like I think it's good to be safe rather than sorry, but I've never really had that experience. So I'm only speaking through my own experience here. But yeah, interesting. Because I guess maybe in Oz, like in Australia, a lot of the plant species, like a lot of the plants available for sale, are kept in plant tanks. Um, and then with the plants that I tend to buy at the moment, I buy plants that are a bit more pricier, a bit more rare to find. So they're often kept in, um, with pressurized CO2 added into the water, nutrients added, and things like that. So disease is very unlikely to occur with the plants that I'm buying. But it's interesting that your area does that. I don't know if that maybe is a your area specific thing, or I'm just lucky enough in where I am based in Melbourne. A lot of the plant stores, the plants are kept separately from the fish. There is fish in the plant aquariums, but they often fish that help clean up, like they are algae eating fish or um, remove, like eat rotting leaf litter or things like that. So, interesting. Um, but yes, hopefully people also saw Christine's um, notification as well. Yeah, I only really buy from fish stores if I see a rare plant that I haven't got in my collection. But now I buy online as well. I tend to enjoy the more uncommon Anubias cultivars, Bucephalandra cultivars, ferns, mosses that aren't found in the stores. But yeah, I feel like the online plant stores, because that's I guess, what they're doing. Yeah, they often treat their plants a lot better. They often are tissue cultured as well. Now you can buy tissue cultured plants, which completely removes the possibility of pests as well. Moss balls, yeah, moss balls are great. I don't have mossballs, so in Australia, mossballs are very hard to find, very expensive, and they're kind of the grey area where they're legal, I think, to import but not to keep. So I've never had mossballs. But I know a couple of crab keepers have. They are an algae, so keep in mind if you're going to use an algicide or use hydrogen peroxide, it will nuke the mossball. Um, I know in America there has been issues with mossballs in the past. I don't know about now, but in the past with the introduction of or the spread of invasive freshwater mussels. Yes, thank you. Um, so keep in mind of that and dispose of the mossballs in a manner that is reducing the spread of those mussels. Um, so yeah, like that would be a great addition. Just keep in mind they are an algae, so they're not as robust compared to a plant. So if you're going to, what's the word I'm looking for? If you're going to treat them for pests, keep in mind how they're going to respond. Algae aren't as sturdy. Marimo, I find they're pretty tolerant of low light though. The issue is just to maintain their round ball, which everyone loves. You either need to roll it into a ball, otherwise it will kind of flatten and like kind of form a mat of algae. Um, so yeah, you need to roll them around to maintain that, I guess, ball-like shape, and also flip them as well, so that way they're kind of being evenly exposed. Oh, interesting. Because I know that a lot of aquarium keepers normally love them because they're pretty low light tolerant. But yeah, it wouldn't surprise me though, because I know they're found in where they are in the wild, they're exposed to high light. So yeah. Mm, interesting. But yeah, no, I've got no experience with the Marimo moss balls, just because they're not really for sale in Australia. Okay, well that's good. Hopefully it stays like that. Invasive um, pests aren't fun. Just I think the best thing to do is if you're going to dispose in a manner that is unlikely to um, end up in your waterway or waterways. Um, but I think that's a good general rule of thumb. If you're going to dispose of something, keep in mind where it might end up and if it's going to be an issue. Um, type. That's how I don't really dispose of micro plants. Um, I guess me disposing them is chucking them in the compost, but I know my compost is never going to end up in the water table. I'm far away from major bodies of water. So, but if you're in a low lying area, if you chuck it in your compost and there's a flood, that could happen. So just be mindful of that. Um, but yeah, the zebra mussels, I remember hearing from some of my US friends, in the aquarium trade. It's pretty scary stuff, but I don't know if it's still an issue or not. I guess you guys will know better than me. I'm on the opposite side of the world, so no idea. Oh, okay. Well, that's not fun. Never mind. Ooh. Yes, it wouldn't surprise me if my 2020 video, if I've said some things in there that now I might have a difference of opinion. But I think there's a lot of things in there that I would still agree with. I feel like with anything, um, opinions can change as we discover new things as well. So Yeah, but I feel like from what I remember it being, I also remember being very stressed while doing it because my file corrupted last moment. I remember poor Mary having to deal with me um, scrambling last minute to get it done. Um, but yeah, be interesting to hear everyone's thoughts on that one. It's been a while since I looked at it because I hate watching videos of me. So yeah, okay. I'll take that as my cue unless there's any further questions to head off and get some shut eye. If there's any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them now before I scramble away. I'll give it 30 seconds just in case someone's still typing, just in the off chance. Otherwise, I am on the Facebook group. I'm more than happy to answer questions there if there's any questions that pop up later on. I'm pretty good at responding. I like to think so. There's times when I miss things as well. Um, I might go a couple of days without being on Facebook though. But I try to respond within a couple of days as long as it doesn't get buried in the archives. Um, but yeah. Okay. I think that's it. Yes. Okay. Awesome. Hopefully that's all. Best of luck with everyone. And I've appreciated the chats today. Hopefully it's been fun for you guys listening to me ramble to myself for the whole, I think almost hour and a half, 2 hours. Sorry if my eyes have been over here the entire time as well. I've been looking at my computer, just scrolling through as well, trying to find information. But other than that, I'm going to have a good night. And everyone enjoy CrabCon. Anyway, see you guys.